Hello, 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 hello. I am back, Evangelist Wanda Booker. I know it's been a while. I hope you all have missed me as much as I have missed you guys. I really have. I really been missed vlogging and just putting my contents out to help someone and to help myself. I have had a little bit of technical difficulties, a little disconnections in my life, but I'm still pressing on, knowing that God has a way, makes a way out of no way, and knowing that God is gonna put me back on the air. I like to come and say thank you to some people that has been asking about me. I want to give a shout out to Miss Jackie in New York. Hey, Miss Jackie. Yes, Unique has told me that you have been asking about me and that you have talked to her about my vlogs and how they really encourage you and how I'm still just persevering in my time of sickness and how I remind you so much of yourself. I thank you just for just loving the vlogs and the contents that I put out. Truly, it makes my heart feel glad. And she also told me that you want to meet me. And we're going to trust in the Lord with all of our heart. And we're going to believe that God is going to make that way that I can come back to New York soon. Maybe a round trip ticket, huh? That me and Miss Jackie can get together and fellowship about all the good things that God is doing for us in our life and what he has done for us. I love you, Miss Jackie. And there are some other ones that do send encouraging messages to me on the vlog. Thank you guys so much. I truly miss y'all. I truly miss vlogging, but it made me have a closer relationship with the Lord. I tell you, I have been reading books, and I tell you, they have been really, truly blessed. Some books that I've been reading, and I really was reading about women in the ministries and what is a woman's part in the ministry, what a woman can't do or what she shouldn't do in the ministry. It's from different opinions of people, and it really been blessing me. Truly, God is so good, and it was yesterday's promises that I was reading, and it was real good. But this is what God gave me for today to go with what I'm going to discuss about yesterday's promises, huh? Do some of y'all have some yesterday's promises, or some broken promises, or someone promised you something and didn't fulfill that promise? But I'm going to read this to you. Wonder. It says, not all who wonder are lost, says the bumper sticker on the back of a Volkswagen bus. Such is the tale of the accident nature bus. Such is the tale of the accident nature bus of Israel. God marvelously released the Israelites from slavery and provided a land for them to live in. Yet on the eve of their entrance into the promised land, they panicked at the tale of the giants and inhabitants awaiting them. Because of their fearful unbelief, God did not let them enter the land. Instead, he led them to wander around for 40 years in the wilderness. He led them to wander around in the wilderness for 40 years. They knew exactly where they were, but they had to wander around. They had to wander anyway. The same things happen to us if we reject what God has told us to do. You hear that? The same thing will happen to us if we reject what God has told us to do. Sometimes He will put our lives on hold until we relate and follow His ways. But God has a heart to retrieve those who are lost and wandering. He calls after us, even if we don't know your way home. He calls after us, even if we don't know our way home. Back to Him, okay? Because of Israel's sin against God, He makes the people wander for 40 years in the wilderness. He later tells them that if they follow Him, He will keep them from wandering again. Worldly desire makes people wander from God. Worldly desire makes people wander from God. I was thinking about this book I read yesterday, Promises, and it was talking about women who was called to minister, women who were called to do work for the Lord, and how the men would not allow the women to do certain things in their church, where in the Bible it was saying that women should be silent in the church and they should be quiet and they're not able to teach in the church. And these were some promises that was given to this particular lady as a child. I was talking about yesterday promises, broken promises, promises that someone promised you something and did not fulfill that promise or didn't keep or hold on to the promise that they promised you. Even as the Israelites were led out of bondage, God had a promise for them that He was gonna give them a land full of milk and honey, and they got discouraged because of the giants that they quote unquote thought they saw. It was a giant grapes, but it was the promised land. But they did not follow what Moses told them to do, and they began to do their own thing, and then that forth, as they began to do their own thing and sin, and you know the devil is always present before us, and they began to sin and do their own thing, and they did not go into the promise. They wandered around for 40 years, doing their own thing, and they did not reach the promised land, the land that God had promised for them. But I was reading yesterday Promises, and as I was saying, it was talking about the church and how they don't allow women to minister in the church. But the lady, she had a title in the church, and her mama had promised her. Her mama had died when she was 8, and her mama had promised her. Asked her mama not to promise her that she wouldn't die, but her mama promised her that she'll always be with her, okay, as an 8-year-old child. Her mama promised her that she'll always be with her. And as she grew older, she was dating this guy for a while, and he promised her to marry her. And on the day when they supposed to have been getting married, he did not want her. He wanted her to be that wife, that housewife, and to be the one to raise the kids and, do things like that. And she wanted to preach. And she said, well, I want to preach. God has called me to preach, okay? And so he was like, well, if you can't do that, then we can't get married. So the boy, he left town and went on his way. And he married someone else 2 years from them. Then he became a bishop, and he had child with this woman. But anyway, the wife life ended due to a car accident. The 5-year-old daughter was in the car. Every time they would go to the church, they would have memories of the car wreck in that way. The little girl thought that she caused the accident to happen because she was talking to her mom, and her mama always would tell her, don't talk to me while I'm driving, you distracts me. So, but anyway, the car accident wasn't the little girl's fault. A man, he was on drugs and he was driving. He ran the red light and he smacked into them, and the mother life was taken, but the daughter lived. Okay, so the bishop is going through this with his daughter, and her daughter is sad, and he's spending time while she grieves over her mother, and he's grieving from the church. And the deacon board decided that they was gonna dismiss him, or they no longer needed him because they needed him to travel, and he needed to be with his daughter. So they took his position away from him. And at the time, when he was grieving over his wife, this bishop that he knew as a little boy, and he used to date his daughter, came to comfort him, and his father to comfort him and to strengthen him. But then as he was going through, so the bishop calls him and asks him, could he come and be the bishop of his church, because he was ready to retire after he had gotten sick, and he knew that it was time for him to give up his position. Okay, the bishop had promised his daughter that she would be the pastor of the church, right? But he called this bishop to be the pastor and the bishop of the church, which was his daughter's ex-boyfriend. The little girl began to take to the daughter as the bishop is inviting him over. Okay, the bishop wanted him to come because he wanted him and his daughter to be married, which his daughter always loved him, but his daughter was still hurt from the broken promises that he was going to marry her. But when they came to get married, both of them wanted different things. Okay, something that I was seeing in this, that the daughter, she wanted to preach. She wanted to be a pastor of a church. But at that time, his daddy called him in to be the bishop and the pastor of the church. The daughter gets upset because her mama promised her that she would never leave her, and she died. She got upset with the daddy because he did not let her be the pastor of the church. So she was upset with her daddy. She got upset with her ex-boyfriend because her daddy picked him to become the bishop and the pastor of the church. Although the daddy wanted them to reconcile and to remarry again. God had showed the bishop of the church some things and led him to do some things. But the daughter, she was always used to getting what she wanted when she wanted, could say what she wanted to say, could do what she wanted to say, do what she wanted to do, and it was okay. She was a lot selfish, as in the story, and I'm trying to just shorten it up, but it was why women don't get positions in the church, and so she preached one Sunday, and he was there, and she preached about the women that did things in the Bible, women that were preachers in the Bible, evangelists, prophets, women that that Jesus told to do something and they did it. Different women that was doing things in the Bible, and so he thought it was like throwing against her. See, they was going against each other the whole time. Mostly it was the woman, because he felt that the promises had been broken. And he wanted to marry her again. He engaged, would get on his knees and talk to her and ask her to marry him. But she's thinking about preaching. And when he was like proposing to her, she was like, she thinking he's going to say, oh, it's your time to preach. Because the bishop did come up with cancer in one of the churches. I think they had like 15 churches, under them. And they went to see the bishop, and he wanted them to put someone else in his place. And the ex-boyfriend thought about the daughter. And then the father, was like, okay, if this is what you want to do, because see, the father was out of it then, he was out of it then, because he had already ordained the ex-boyfriend to be the bishop and the pastor of the church, okay? And so the daughter, she was really upset, and so the bishop her ex-boyfriend that was the bishop, he thought about it, and he was like, Atlanta, Georgia, that would be too far from me. She'll be far from me, and I don't want her to go, And so he gave the position to another pastor that was already in that church. She got very upset about that, she would say some cruel things, and she was a pastor. I mean, she was a elder, but she wasn't the pastor of her father's church. And some different things was happening in that, and some different things happened to her that she could see, because somebody left her an email telling her how selfish and how mean she was, that she need to get out. She thought it was the guy, but it wasn't him, it was someone else. But just a whole lot of things going on, and the timing. Our timing is not God's timing. So she had to wander around for a couple of years, because she was holding her own self back because of her selfishness, and because she wanted to be up there. She wanted to be seen of man and not of God. I mean, she loved God, but she just wanted this position so bad, And he began to study, and he remembered that his daddy put in his head that women are supposed to cook and clean and have babies and do the house things and, wait on their husband, hand, foot, nail, toes, and all of that. And he kept that in his head, because this is what he heard ever since he was a little boy. Women supposed to be silent in the church. Okay, Paul said that women should be silent in the church, and women should not teach in the church, that women should be in the background, because of when they was having their meeting at the church, and the women was babbling or talking or whatever, and it was causing distraction. So that was that purpose, and so the son began to read about it, and because God didn't say it, Jesus didn't say it, but Apostle Paul said it. And it began to get in his spirit, and he went to tell his daddy, and he showed his daddy the scriptures, where saying, and then where women did this in the Bible, Okay, talking about women's in the Bible, we're talking about the woman that was at the well, that God said that he would give her, Jesus said that he would give her living water, that she may not thirst again. He told her to go get her husband. And she said, I have no husband. He said, you said you have no husband. You have had 5 husbands, and the one that you're with now is not your husband. So go get him and come back. And she was saying, come see a man who told me all about me. She was going, carrying the word, and bringing back people. She was evangelizing. Come see a man who told me all about me. And as she was going, the people was following her. As she came back after she got a boyfriend, they was following her. So, and she said, I have met the Messiah. And so that was one woman. When Jesus got up out of the grave, there was a woman there. Who was that? That was Mary. And she was there. How about the woman in the Bible that took her precious alabaster box, her box with all her perfumes in it, and she began to wash Jesus' feet, and she began to anoint him with her oils, and she was anointing him for his burial. That was a woman doing something, carrying the message, and she was anointing him, and she was like, "You don't know the cost of my oil." When the disciples were saying, "Leave him alone. You're not worthy. You don't know the cost of my tears. You wasn't there when my Jesus found me. You wasn't there when he wrapped his loving arms around me. You don't know the cost of the oil in my alabaster box." They was like, his disciples, you could sell it and get much money. But the cost of it didn't mean anything for her, because she was giving back to Jesus what he has given to her. He was there. He found her. He wrapped his love and arms around her, because of her sinful ways. And she was renewed, and she was set free, and she was able to live, and she wanted to give back to him. You don't know the cost of my tears. You don't know the cost of my pain. You don't know the cost of these years that I have asked God to deliver me and set me free. You don't know the cost of my oil in my alabaster box. And she did that, and it was Anna, she was a prophet, and different people in the Bible, women in the Bible that carried the word, that carried the torch, and don't let no one tell you, what you can or what you cannot do, or what God didn't call you to do. God called Moses to bring the people out of bondage, and once he brought them out of bondage, they wanted to stay into bondage. Okay, this girl, she was in bondage. She wasn't set free because she held on to broken promises, or promises that people didn't keep. And it made her bitter. It made her evil. It made her nasty. And she treated people, because she's holding on to the promise that her mama, made to her, the promise that her father made to her, the promise that the guy made to her, and stuff like that. And she's holding her life back. She's not moving into if God called you, then be faithful and believe that he will keep his promises. All his promises are yea, not nay. He is faithful to his promise. And he who began a good work, he is faithful to complete it in you. So God had to faithfully complete that work in her. He had to humble her. And as she said, when people start telling her about herself and, telling you mean, you bitter, and she would look at it and pray about it, and and then she would go on her knees and pray about it, and she would seek answers, and she would run from different things because of broken promises. She was still haven't forgiven the guy from marrying somebody else, but they didn't want the same thing. But then God turned it around, because it was meant for them to be together, because he loved this woman with all his heart ever since he was a little boy, and she loved him. But she was acting like he didn't love her, and he was like, I love you. My life is not worth living without you. He loved the Lord too, but he wanted his life to be even better with her. And they had a plan. But sometimes our plans are not God's plans. What we want is not what God wants. And then God will want some things so bad, but it's not time for us to get those things. But some things had to happen, to change her life. And God had did some different things in her life. And she had to help his daughter. His daughter helped her. She had to, God had to speak to her and say that your mother didn't break her promises, that you have special memories of baking cookie, of setting the table, and different things that her and her mother did, going to the park and this and that and the other. And she found out that she still had her mother, was still with her, the memories that she had. She forgot about all of those good things that her and her mama had together, and just was thinking on one thing. Because her mama passed, her mama died. It was God's will that her mama died, but she was just thinking on that thing. Promise me, mama, that you won't die on me. And the little girl, she was stuck on, she was a distraction, because that's what she would always hear her mama say. So she thought that she was the reason why her mama was in the accident and her mama was being killed. But that wasn't the reason. It had nothing to do with that, And then the bishop, the new bishop of the church, he was still holding on to something his father told him about women should not be preachers in the ministry. And he had to get it together. Then the girl, she had to go to the little girl and talk to the little girl, And it just was a mess, because the bishop of the church that retired, his daughter really was fighting against the new bishop. But come behold, God brought it to his attention and showed him different scriptures as he studied the scriptures, seeing that women were doing different things in the Bible. What about the woman that touched the hem of his garment? She said, but if I can only touch the hem of his garment, I could be made whole. And the woman that, she suffered with bleeding for 12 long years, So that was a testimony that she can go and tell and minister to people, about what God has done for her and the goodness of God. So with so many different women, even Jesus' mother, Mary, she carried the promised child in her womb. She carried him. So that was a ministry as well, by carrying him in her womb. The promised child, the Savior of this world. So a lot of women, and there's a whole lot of women in the Bible that did some things, ministering and preaching and teaching and just doing things in the Bible. And so don't let nobody tell you that you can't do this, or God didn't call women to preach, or God didn't call women to do this and do that. The church is full of women, and truly God is good. But I just wanted to let you not go wandering around in the wilderness for 40 years and just because of broken promises, or promises that hadn't been fulfilled, or you heard part of the story but you didn't analyze the whole story of it, and it have kept you bound for years. It have kept you in bondage for years. Once you're free from that, stay free. If you have a problem with your attitude, if you got a problem with people, because when we have a problem with everybody, it's something in us that needs to be changed, and we have to ask God to change us. And even myself, I ran from my calling for a long time, but God, he says, who I call, I qualify, and God anoints us. He said that he will pour his anointing upon all flesh, that when women and men, they shall prophesy, they should dream dreams, they should see visions, and that he said that my sons and my daughters, may prophesy, may dream dreams and see visions. And he has a work for his sons and his daughters to do. So work while it's day, for night cometh, no man shall work. I hope I helped someone with this. I didn't go into scriptures, but I was telling y'all about them, so you can look up Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John about, different things that Jesus did, and people that he healed, and they went back and they was telling of his story. Acts was talking about the women in church, Apostle Paul, but Paul said that he wished, that's what Paul said, but God did not say that we should not preach women. God did not say it. Jesus did not say it. He said he pulled his flesh upon the whole body. that his men and his women will prophesy and tell of the good news. Be a witnesser of the Lord. Mary and them, Mary Magdalene and all of them, they was witnesses of what had happened. With Jesus, they were able to tell the story. So you tell the story and don't be just wandering around in the wilderness because of what someone told you. Get into that word and read that word for yourself, and then you will find out for yourself. We got to work out our own soul salvation with fear and trembling. So get in that word for yourself and find out what God's word says about it. Don't go on what people say, but you analyze that word for yourself. And that's how we have to do. I enjoy being with y'all. I love y'all with the love of God, and I'm glad to be back. I can't say when it's going to be up or when things are going to be back to running, but I hope I help y'all when you do see this. I love y'all. I love y'all with the love of God. Hello, people. I missed y'all. I missed y'all so much. But truly, God is good and He's worthy to be praised. And I'm going to get the word out, get His message out, and y'all trust in the Lord with all your heart. And lean not to your own understanding, but in all thy ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct your path. He will direct you to the promised land, to not broken promises, not people promise you, but God. Remember, God fulfills all of His promises, and all of His promises are yea. All right. I love y'all with the love of God, and kisses to all, and to all my subscribers. Y'all tell somebody else about Evangelist Wanda Booker. She's back and better than ever. I love y'all. Peace out.